Hi everyone, it's Toby. Thank you for joining me. Today we're sketching this, of course. This is a very busy scene from St Pancras in London. We have tons of people, really complicated building, and they are the two things we'll be focusing on today. We'll be looking at how you can easily get effective people into your scene, make them easy to pull apart visually, and just have fun and relax with your sketching. So we're going to start with shapes. Now, it'd be very tempting in this to go overboard, but we just need to basically not. So I'm going to start with very simple shapes. Got triangles, circles, little sort of rectangles and squares, and that's all I'm focusing on. As we come down, we can start linking up shapes. So we got this kind of triangle next to it. We just link that up and then link that into the next shape as well. Little cone. And now we've built the top of our tower already in next to no time. Coming down, we've got another rectangle and then a bigger one to the side. Then we've got two smaller ones. And all the time we're sort of monitoring the perspective as well. So as we get closer and closer to the ground, the lines will slope less and less until at the ground level, they're below our eye level. So suddenly the street is sloping up. Of course, in the reference, it's hidden behind all the people. So we're not going to finish that. We're not going to totally resolve it yet. Now what we're going to do, we're going to come down and we're going to do these sort of background buildings and a couple of sort of chimneys. And there we go. And look at these windows filling up this rectangle. And again, we can't see here, so we leave it. Coming along here, we just repeat the same process. Again, just being sort of careful with the perspective, noting how the lines gradually shift. They gradually go from sloping like this until at the bottom we've actually, well, it gets challenging, doesn't it? Because at the bottom we've actually got something in a different plane, so we can pop that in, but then above it we can get these lines gradually sloping less and less and less. So we can imagine what would happen at the road. It would be basically a flat line, wouldn't it? And coming down, how much more have we got? We've got these little sort of stacked shapes over here and over here. And do you see how complex this is in the background? Not of my sketch, but the background of the actual building itself. Well, for me, and this is a personal thing, but for me it's definitely enough just to suggest that complexity. These little shapes, they're kind of meaningless, aren't they? If anyone wants to criticise them, then I'm totally agreeing with you. They are totally meaningless. Just like these shapes in the background are basically meaningless. But what they're doing for me is they're suggesting all those chimneys, they're suggesting all those windows, and they are not bothering to finish them off. They're not bothering to say, I have to exactly sketch this all right. But they're telling the viewer that there's loads going on. And for me, that's how I like sketching. And I've probably lost count. I've definitely lost count of the windows. I've definitely lost count of a few elements coming down here, but that's okay. For me, maybe not for you, but for me, it's okay just to get the idea of the scene and leave out a few bits. Same coming down, I'm going to get the windows approximately right. And then as we go off to this side, the windows are going to get less and less right. We're getting further away from our focal point, so I care less about the details and more. I just want to suggest a few bits about what's going on. So now we've got this sort of complicated, wonky, perspective-laden backdrop. Maybe a little bit of correction on this, I just noticed, would be nice. But now we can start filling in our people. Now this is a great one to look at the horizon line. So the horizon line, this is a flat scene. The horizon line is eye level. So we can draw it about here because it goes through this doorway, goes through all these windows. And if we do that, we can actually see that all of our people, their heads are on that line. So we can pick out this man with his suitcase, give him his little glasses, and then a simple body, just basically a shape. We can even give him some hands and his phone, and then his legs. Maybe his legs can even be two shapes today. Normally I just do them as a single shape. His legs can be two shapes, and then in front of him we can get a simple little suitcase. And look, his head is on that line. Let's come along to the next man who's also got a suitcase. So we get his head, look, on that line. His feet end a little bit higher because he's further away. We can give him a hand and a simple suitcase again. And then his feet. And then between that, we can connect everything else. Look, it's a man. It's just some shapes. But it works for me. It works as a man. Coming forward, we've got all these girls, so we can again just get their heads. Start off with their heads, and also we can include their hair as part of the shapes of their heads. Then we can just come forwards with their little shapes. They've got a bag, haven't they? So there's a nice little simple bag. Feet coming back here. The feet here of this lady are falling off the edge of the page, but we can, or off the edge of the reference, but we can add them in anyway. Then the people going back, we can just sort of suggest. Okay, anyone else really important to pick out? Probably not. Probably everyone else is in the distance. But look, all these heads are on this line, the horizon line. In the distance, what we've got a curb. So now we know everyone's feet have to be on this curb, unless they're in the street. We've got a curb here we can add in as well. But we've got a horizon line, so we can now just start putting people's heads, then their feet. And look, that's where our people must be. They're all like this. Their heads are on a line. If they're really tall, their head will be just above the line. If they're a child, they'll be below the line. And then their feet, that's what tells you how tall they are and where they are. Because if they got, doesn't tell them how tall they are. Sorry, I'm talking absolute nonsense. Their feet tells you where they are in the scene. That where they are is where their feet are. So we know this man is behind this one because his feet are higher up. We know this girl is closer because her feet are lower down. We know these people are in the distance because their feet are further back. And we can keep going, just adding simple suggestions of people. As we get further away from our focal point, again, people can become a blur of circles and lines. And it works because we've spent a bit of time on our people at the front. If we want to just make them stand out a little bit more, we can give them some simple hatching. Just maybe hatch their bodies and leave their heads blank. And then we can also do the reverse. So we can get these people to stand out by hatching in areas like the windows. And then people in front and beside the windows and the walls will suddenly stand out because they are lighter. And so now we have our really busy scene. All we've done is focus on really quick shapes, and yet we've filled out a no doubt very complicated scene, and no doubt we've simplified it hugely, but that's all been possible quickly through using shapes. Now it's time just to have some fun with some colours. With all this ink work going on, we don't want to overdo it, we don't want to overcomplicate it, so I'm just going to have a go with a couple of ideas. I'm going to mix on my page some red, some quinacridone sienna, that's basically red and orange. And then I'm going to let that come down. And let's just see what happens when these colours mingle. A few little touches back here, looking for all these nice little red areas of the building. And again, why not just let it come down? And what I'm going to try and do is just keep it away from some of these front people. On the other side of the building, we've got a bit of shade. So let's just mix in a little bit of indigo. And we should end up with a nice sort of shadowy colour. If we keep the red in that, it's a shadowy red, moody kind of feel. And I know this it's not really this shadowy, is it? This side of the building, nowhere near this shadowy. But that's fine. For me, at least, that is absolutely fine. Just having a play with our colours. Now, let's try a sky. I wasn't sure about a sky, but having put that red in, I feel like contrasting it with a really punchy blue could be a nice touch. So I'm going to splash some blue around and just bring it up to our tower, up to the St Pancras station, and see what happens. And again, just plenty of water, lets things move around, lets things blend together, and keeps things from just feeling overworked, even when we're going a bit mad, being a bit quick, and just having a bit of fun rather than trying too hard. Now, what we probably want to do is call that our loose colours done. Let it dry. We can add in another layer of colour and a final layer of ink, and things will really start to come together. So we are mostly dry. Now let's do what we said. Let's do those little extra touches of colour. So firstly, we'll just reinforce some of these little bits of red, just in a few places, not everywhere. And we don't want it to be too sort of hard as an edge, so we can come in and soften things out. Then over this side, we can actually touch in a little bit of that, what am I trying to say? That indigo. And this time it's actually mixed with some quinacridone. I think that creates a nicer, more gentle shadow than what we had before. So I think that's probably a nice touch. I'm glad that I did that because it's kind of softened things, made it more interesting. This, remember, this bit here is in the same plane as here. So I'm just adding in that same shadow and the same over here. And just by getting each plane having the same shadow, the same feel, suddenly we connect the image a little bit more clearly. Now we come down here and it's time to start playing with our people. Now the people have got colours, so we can stick with that or we can just have fun with it ourselves. I'm going to go with having fun and choosing my own colours. So I'm going to take something like this, this is a cobalt turquoise, and I'm just going to apply that to a few people. Then I'm going to swap to a different colour. So I'm going to take a Hansa yellow and apply this to a few people as well. Just a really simple colour scheme to apply in a few different places to pull out our people. I'll take some indigo next. Now this can maybe form the trousers of our man here, the trousers of our man here. And maybe we can have just a man back here, maybe someone back here who's that same colour. What else do we want? Maybe we keep doing new colours. Let's try some gold green. We could have a gold green lady here and maybe one here. And then let's take something which is already in the image. So I'm going to take some cobalt blue, nice and rich. And I'm going to just pick out a couple more people with that. So a few, just blue, got cobalt blue, cobalt turquoise. And hopefully with all of that, we're getting an interesting atmosphere to the sketch. We're making it feel busy. We're making it feel alive. We're not overdoing it. We're not sort of stressing about getting things perfect. We're just having a bit of fun. And anything else that you would do, there's probably loads, but unfortunately I can't ask you because you're not really here. So I just have to make a few random decisions myself, just adding in a bit more cobalt here, a little bit more Scarlet Lake there, doing a few splashes, because this is the last little touch of colour I want to do. A few little bits of blue up here, and also let's just connect things together again with some blue on the pavement. And just like that, that's my colours done. Going to let them dry. Last step will be adding in some ink. And we are almost dry, so we can come and jump in with our ink. What I'm going to do is just refine and refocus some of these shapes and also get some more contrast in there. At the moment, there's a bit of contrast, but everything's else also a little bit samey in terms of, if you squint, there aren't many really dark areas. But look, as soon as we start adding in a little bit of black ink, maybe blacking in some of these windows, not all of them, but some of them, do you see how the contrast amps up? And with contrast often comes a bit of drama or a bit of shape or just something extra to draw the eye. Coming in here, I want to get our foreground objects just a bit bolder. So I just come in with a bolder line again and make sure that we bring those things forward with that boldness. Bold lines, of course, come forwards in our scene. So that's what I mean by bringing things forward with a bold line. If we make something bolder than the objects around it, it naturally just feels like it's closer to us. Going back, similarly, we need to avoid over emboldening things. We need to make sure that they stay back just by leaving them a little bit lighter. Going back here, maybe you know what, we do add a few windows, just a few, nothing too much, but just a few little touches here and there. And there we go. Again, this is sort of veering off into untouched territory. It's the edge. We don't need too much extra depth of line there. Then down at the base, again, just so we can pull out our people a bit better, I'm going to redo some of this hatching. And now we can find our people. And if we want something to come forward, it's definitely these people, isn't it? So what happens if we really embolden those lines? We can make some of them have dark heads. So we can blacken some heads with ink. We can leave some totally white. This is just a visual cue for our eyes. It's not suggesting anything about the people. What it does is it makes it much easier to pick out the people if they've got really contrasting heads. The head being like the key shape, which makes a human really. So we can do that with this person's head and hair. Suddenly it's black against this very white one. And same here. Same here. Back in the distance, we want to leave some white and contrasting, some black and contrasting. Now, I once did similar thing to this. I used different colours and I got comments about race and things like this. And I assure you that there is nothing I'm doing which relates in any way to race. This is all using visual cues to make it easier and more interesting to pull things apart with our eyes. So that is the context for why I might colour some people's heads in yellow, colour some people's heads in turquoise. And it's just like doing the windows, suddenly that contrast really jumps off the page and suddenly you can just find people all over, where before it wasn't necessarily super clear what they were about. And just like that, we are very almost done. I think a little bit of hatching here just to provide more contrast around this man's head. And maybe last little touches, we've got a couple of lamps, we've got a couple of traffic lights that we could add in quite nicely, I think. We can add in, there's another one just about here. We can just add that in. Just again, a little bit of extra busyness, bit of extra madness in our scene. And it kind of tells you a little bit more about what's going on with these road markings and things like that. Maybe this person's head darker because then it alternates. And I'm going to call that my scene done. Going to put my signature on it, hide my signature somewhere back here, my initials down there, and call this a little bit mad, very quick, very energetic scene full of people. Done. If you want to find out more of this kind of sketching style in depth, check out my course on sketchleaves.co.uk. Please also comment, tell me what you think. Too mad, not mad enough. And subscribe if you enjoy. Hit the like button so more people find this video. And I'll see you in the next one. So thank you everyone for watching my little sketching videos. If you enjoy my content, please do subscribe to my channel because it makes me really, really happy. Thanks again.